Okay. Wow, look at everybody chiming in here. Hi, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen here. Give me just 1 second. Okay, we're going to share that. Okay. Sweet. So everybody can see my screen now, right? Awesome. Don't forget Texas. Hello, Texas. Thank you for confirming you can see my screen. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. Thank you again for being here. My name is Erin Mursch. I'm a certified master KonMari consultant based in Austin, Texas. My business is called Organized for Good. And I usually will be working with people in their homes. Obviously can't do that now due to the quarantine, but I'm doing my best to pivot and doing virtual sessions, and I've got a virtual program going that I will tell you guys about towards the end of my talk. But without further ado, let's get started. So obviously, if you are into the tiny home world, then there's a necessity to downsize. Many of us have much more than we need. And I think this is the perfect time to declutter with purpose. Obviously, it's springtime. It's the season of renewal, of new beginnings. Obviously, during this quarantine, we're all stuck at home. So it's a great time to start inventorying what's around you. Earlier this week, we had a new moon in Taurus. And if you guys are into the moon stuff at all, it's always a good time for new beginnings during a new moon. And of course, earlier this week, we celebrated Earth Day, which is a wonderful time to reflect on your relationship with this planet and your relationship with stuff, and how those two can kind of go hand in hand. When we talk about decluttering and clutter, I always like to be in my talks with this question: what is clutter? It's just such an all-encompassing, vague word, and I really like to define it a little bit more clearly. I like this definition from Joseph Ferrari at DePaul University in Chicago. He says, clutter is an overabundance of possessions that collectively create chaotic and disorderly living spaces. I think that absolutely says it all, but I do have more to add. In my experience, items that don't have homes end up becoming clutter. It's this kind of visual noise. Even items that do have homes and aren't regularly returned home. I think about, brush your teeth in the morning, and a lot of people just leave it out on the counter. But just finish that up and put it away back in its home. It's also stuff you haven't needed or used maybe in a while. And it's definitely stuff that is awaiting a decision or action from you. All of these reasons combined, and difficult emotions, of course, that haven't been processed. This is especially the case with clients of mine who have maybe lost loved ones and have some inherited photos or, heirloom furniture pieces and things like that. There can be a lot of emotion in our clutter as well. So that weighs heavy on us. But clutter is linked to procrastination, shocking, those things awaiting decision from you, and an increase in the stress hormone cortisol. And as I'm sure you guys know, you're in the tiny home community because you know that there's just too much stuff and we don't need all of that. It's not bringing us happiness. But the average American home size has doubled in the last 50 years, and we just keep accumulating things. In fact, the average household contains 300,000 items. And if you were to just take a single second to evaluate whether you want to keep that item or not, a single second, all of that would take 83 hours and 20 minutes, which is quite a big endeavor. 26% of Americans can't fit a car in their garage. And I should clarify that that's a single car, even in a 2-car garage. So we've got way more than we need. And there's 50,000 storage unit facilities across the US. If you compare that to the number of Starbucks, which seem to be on every corner, not only in the country, but in the world, it's just staggering. Of course, with fast fashion seasons have gone from 4 to 52 per year. So there's just constantly this accumulation. of stuff, and we're only wearing about 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the time. Now, again, I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but who will save us from our clutter? I'd love to see you guys. Who is this? In the comments, if you could just pop in. Who is this? Yes, Marie Kondo. Beautiful. That's Jenna B. Got it. I love her too. Absolutely. Okay, so here we have Marie Kondo, and her method is called the KonMari method. So it's kind of a mashup of her first and last name. And that's the name of her method. And she introduced this method to us in the Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It's been translated into like 40 languages and has sold 11 million copies. And I was a quick fan of the book. And then last year, Netflix picked up the series, Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. So she became more or less a household name. But there's still kind of some myths and misunderstandings about what her method is. So I'm happy to clarify that for you guys. First, I have a pop quiz. The KonMari method is the same thing as minimalism. Is this true or false? Triana thinks it's false. Anybody else? Nope. Yep, it is false. Absolutely. It is not the same thing as minimalism. Minimalism obviously has the goal of having as little as possible, whereas the KonMari method is more an approach to your objects in order to make the decision what you really need. And it's not about having as little as possible. It's just about having the things that make you happy and support your lifestyle. All right, number 2, Marie Kondo says it's okay to throw away others' things. True or false? Good, I'm seeing some correct responses. That is false. Number 3, the KonMari method involves thanking your socks. True or false? Yes. Okay, so to get back to that last piece, Marie Kondo says it's okay to throw away others' things. No, she encourages you to evaluate your own possessions, and you can encourage other people to do the same thing, but it's not right. It's disrespectful to throw away other people's things. And yes, it does involve thanking your socks. In fact, gratitude is infused throughout the entire process, and that is what makes it such a joyful one. It's truly a celebration of your life, rather than a bemoaning of all of the stuff that's kind of weighing you down. Number 4, the KonMari method involves buying lots of boxes and containers so you can create a home for each item you own. Is that true or false? False. Good, Katie. Awesome. That is false. In fact, she encourages you to reuse as much as possible as far as storage goes. And in fact, her approach is not super focused on storage. It's really more about curating your stuff, and I'll explain that more. But it is true that you want to create a home for each item you own. That much is definitely true. All right, number 5, Marie Kondo believes that your stuff wants you to be happy. True or false? True. Alex, thank you. Yes, this is true. Once again, the whole purpose of having stuff to begin with is to support our lives, to help us accomplish our dreams, to make us happy, to make our lives easier, more convenient. And that is the true purpose. All right, this is the last question in the pop quiz, and it's kind of a giveaway. As a certified master KonMari consultant, I'm basically a member of Marie Kondo's clutter-hating cult. True or false? Yes, this is very true. Happy cult member here. But I actually attended Marie Kondo's first training for consultants that she offered across the world. That was in 2016. So I've been doing this work for about 4 years, and I've worked my way up the certification levels and am now a master because of the number of hours that I put into the work. But I truly believe that I'm doing something good and helping people. And I'm hoping that I can help you too through this workshop. All right, so let's get into it. What is the KonMari method? It's a dramatic reorganization of the home that causes correspondingly dramatic changes in lifestyle and perspective. And I have a before and after photo here. I'm not sure if you can see it if your screen's too small, but in the top, this was a home office belonging to one of my first clients, Katie, and she had just become a new mom and was wanting to start her own business and not go back to her old job after maternity leave. So after about 6 weeks of working our way through the KonMari method, we were able to achieve this transformation. And it really did change her life. She was able to start her home business. She was able to focus and be productive and live her dreams. So that's true. And now I'm going to go through the 6 rules of the KonMari method, and I'll speak a little bit about each. I'm also going to talk a little bit about storage, and I'm going to talk a lot about the mindset shift that occurs when you do this work. So the first rule of the KonMari method is to commit to tidying up once and for all. Chances are, if you're on this call, it's because you've made attempts in the past to get organized, and maybe you've decluttered and then clutter has reappeared, or maybe you're in a transitional period in your life. Maybe you're making this decision to move into a tiny home, and this is the moment where you really need to commit to downsizing and to reach that goal. It's important to note that it should be celebrated. I think a lot of people refer to their stuff as junk or crap or, pick your expletive. But really using that kind of language brings a negativity to the process when really it should be celebrated. I mean, it's an overabundance. So you have to acknowledge, maybe you've made some bad decisions in the past and that has led to this accumulation, but this is an opportunity for you to face those decisions and make a change. So it can be a really powerful thing and definitely introspective. And again, let's bring gratitude, let's bring positivity to the experience to make it fun. All right, the second rule is to envision your ideal lifestyle. Just knowing that you guys are all in the tiny house community, I feel like I have an idea what your ideal life might be, but I want you to just take some time before you even get started on the decluttering and get really clear and really granular on what the happiest version of yourself looks like. So what kind of activities you do, who you surround yourself with, what you do kind of on that day-to-day basis. So you really have that clear picture, and that's going to help you when you're assessing your belongings. It's going to help you make that connection. Okay, what am I working towards? And it's going to keep you motivated throughout this process. The third rule, and this is super important, is to finish discarding first. Now, again, since you guys are members of the tiny house community, you probably know this, but you don't want to start your decluttering process by going to the Container Store or to Target or ordering, new anything. You don't want to add anything additional. I also want to draw attention to this word discarding. I don't recommend hiring a big dumpster and throwing everything in there. I am an environmentalist, and I'm sure many of you are as well. I really like to think of this as a mindful curation of your possessions and like a peaceful letting go process. So that word discarding can be a little tricky, but I work around it. All right, the fourth rule of the KonMari method is to tidy up by category and not location. And this is where the real departure from like traditional organizing methods comes. Many of the traditional organizing approaches would be to, work one space at a time. So if you have a home office, you declutter your home office, and then you're going to go declutter your closet, you're going to declutter your bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. But what happens when you do that is you might be just shifting stuff from one space to another without ever really reducing. And because often our storage is scattered throughout the home, you may find yourself revisiting the same types of things over and over and over. So by working one category at a time, you're able to do it all in one go, and then you only have to do it once. So an example of a category could be t-shirts. Okay. An example of a category could be cooking utensils. So rather than in the kitchen organizing this drawer and then organizing that drawer, you're really going to identify one type of item and then pull them all out and say, okay, of all of these, let's say knives, which are the ones that I love and use the most, et cetera. And you'll work your way through your home in this manner. There's a particular order that she recommends using, and it starts with easier items and works your way through harder items. So the first category is clothing. And the reason she considers that to be an easy category is it's close to the body. We're very intimately connected to our clothes. And as adults, probably most of us pick out our own clothes. And so we're used to choosing every day what we're going to wear that day. We're choosing how we want to express ourselves. And it's really choosing our skin for the day. So there's something very special about clothing and accessories that make it a nice, friendly way to start. And so when you do this, you're going to pull everything out of storage. So let's take t-shirts, for example. If you've got t-shirts in this drawer and that drawer and maybe in a box under your bed, maybe you've got some other ones in the closet folded, wherever they are, you're going to pull t-shirts from all around the world and really assess each one at a time. You'll do the same with books, and you're going to pull everything off of the bookshelves. You're going to take the cookbooks out of the kitchen. You're going to take the coffee table books, gather them all in one place, so you really get an idea of the total volume in each category as you're working your way through. Then you'll do papers, and then that fourth category, miscellaneous, there's a lot of subcategories within that, but cooking utensils and knives are examples, but you could do health and beauty products, electronics, hobby equipment, any other category that is not one of those first three is going to fall somewhere in that miscellaneous category. And at that point, you can go in whatever order feels right to you. You just want to go from easier stuff to harder stuff, and then leave the sentimental stuff until the very end. I don't know about you, but in the past, when I've tried to get organized, I've gotten completely distracted by running into old journals or photographs, and you find yourself, maybe on the floor reading 12 pages of your journal from the 90s, and before you know it, you've lost all progress on the organizational front. So the idea is to work through and then allow yourself that emotional processing that really happens when you curate your sentimental items. And again, the goal, it's not minimalism. The goal is to reduce the volume and then to just keep the ones that are the most special. Keep only what sparks joy. This is probably the most famous line of Marie Kondo's and what she's known best for. Her second book was called Spark Joy. But I added an asterisk because I want you to consider what sparks joy and what fits your vision for your ideal life. So if your goal is a tiny home, or maybe you're already in a tiny home, then you really need to have both of those factors together. Otherwise, thank you, goodbye. So as I said, gratitude is infused throughout the process. And in that pop quiz, she has you thank your socks. She has you thank everything in your life, the things that you keep and the things that you let go. And here is an opportunity to really learn some lessons from your stuff. As I said, it's an introspective process. And often our belongings can be like a reflection for us. And say you have some clothes in your closet with tags on, but you never wear it and you probably never will. It maybe feels wasteful to let it go without ever having worn it. But what you can do to kind of stop that shame spiral or however you're feeling about it, is to really think about, okay, why did I buy that to begin with? Why didn't it work out? And learn something about it. So if you got this great dress that you thought was a great dress, you got it on sale, but it just didn't fit your lifestyle, that's what you can learn from it. Thank you, dress. Like, thanks for not fitting my lifestyle or whatever. All right, so now I'm going to get into my top 5 storage tips now that we've kind of walked through what the KonMari method approach is. The first tip I have is don't stack. Instead, stand things up on end. And I have some images here, papers, depending, I mean, every client has kind of their challenges, but papers can be a big challenge for a lot of people. And a lot of people use those like inbox trays and they end up piling, and then there's multiple stacks of paper everywhere. The problem with that is the stuff on the bottom always gets forgotten. So if you turn it vertically, then you can really access everything you need to. The same goes for clothing, and she's very well known for her folding method, where everything is folded into a small little rectangle and it stands up on end within the drawer. So you open the drawer and you can literally see all of the contents in the drawer easily. And first of all, it's beautiful. Second of all, things don't get as wrinkled because there's not pressing happening. There's not weight stacked on top of each other. And it really allows you to take notice and observe what you end up wearing the most often. And it prevents you from purchasing things that are duplicates of things that you already have. So if you open your drawer every day and you see that you've got, 2 white camis or whatever it is, chances are you won't go buy another white cami. Second tip, especially good for a tiny home, is to use every inch of vertical space. And I've got a couple of photos here that I grabbed from the internet. These are not mine. But I love pegboards because they're really adjustable. You make great use of the space. And it's the same concept of not stacking and to think of standing things on end. And in this second photo with the jars, you can see it's like above a shelf and below a cabinet. So that, 8 or 10 inches of space would have been wasted, but they either glued the lids to the underside of the cabinet, or they use some really powerful magnets to hold those up. But I just think that's a brilliant way to really maximize your storage space, especially in a small space like a tiny home. My next favorite tip is to remove packaging to reduce visual noise. Don't underestimate the power of this. All of the packaging has, all of this promotional language and flashy colors, and it's all salesy. I mean, we're surrounded by advertising so much. We don't really want to feel that way in our home. So it's really a trick to have a calmer and more peaceful home. I love decanting in pantries also, especially if you've got open shelving. It makes everything look really beautiful, and it's practical because you can see how much you have of everything, and it's a great way to inventory what you need to pick up at the grocery store next time you're there. So those are some of my favorites, and you don't have to order a bunch of plastic, online. You can definitely use mason jars or reuse jars that you already have. All right, fourth storage tip, and again, these photos are not mine, these are grabbed, but I love multifunctionality in small spaces. You see this table folds up really neatly. It's got a little bit of storage underneath, but you can easily slide it away and make lots of floor space if you want to have a dance party or you want to practice yoga or whatever you want to do in your space. So if you're in the process of designing your tiny home, definitely keep multifunctionality in mind. And in this second photo, I love, and you see this a lot, I'm sure, in tiny homes. Stairs also double as drawers. I think drawers are fantastic. I'm not as big of a fan of the like hinge top kind of like toy chest style. But I've seen a lot of photos on the internet about, you can lift up your mattress and store things underneath, kind of have that hinge top. But if you can have drawers, that's just easier to get to, in my opinion. All right, the last storage tip, and this is for papers again. It's a category that a lot of people struggle with. And I definitely encourage you to go paperless if possible. But if that's just not in your realm, it's not going to happen for you, then here's what I suggest for papers. When it comes time, when you're in your third category of the KonMari method and you're sorting your papers, I recommend these 3 paper categories. You're also going to have, recycling and shredding, most likely. Hopefully the biggest pile is recycling, but action items, any bills that you need to pay, anything requiring action from you needs to go in a specific place. And I'll show you what I have here. Let me go back to this other tab. Okay. So I have this file sorter. This is just a regular file sorter. It's from the Container Store, but it doesn't matter. You can get these anywhere. I keep my action folder front and center. Literally anytime I walk in the door with papers, whether the mail came or kids from school or whatever, I quickly sort it right away, and anything requiring action gets dropped in here right away. Anything that I receive that needs to be filed, maybe it's tax time and I'm getting a bunch of W-2s or whatever, put them in your file folder, okay? The third one is pending. And pending items or pending papers are things that you don't require immediate action, but that you don't need to keep forever. So maybe it's something like a coupon you got for an oil change, but you're not due for an oil change for another couple thousand miles. You can put that in your pending folder, and you're going to do a weekly clear out, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Yes, I'll get to your question, Laura. So you'll do a weekly paper clear out, and anything in the pending that is now in action moves to the action folder. You're going to take care of all of your actions. You're going to file away everything that needs to be filed, and that would be in a separate location. So this is like a temporary holding place, but you're going to clear it out weekly, and you're going to have a separate either file box or file drawer, whatever, depends on how much you have. Maybe it's an accordion file. And that's where you'll have the categories of the things that you keep, like your taxes or your whatever, lease for whatever, legal contracts, things that you need to keep on hand. All right. So now I want to talk about the mindset shift that really occurs when you go through the KonMari method. Once you have completely inventoried everything you own and you've selected what to keep based on what sparks joy and what really fits your lifestyle, you're going to have reduced and more conscious shopping behaviors moving forward. And I bet this is true for the tiny house community in general. You definitely won't be accumulating at the same rate once you do this. You're also going to be more in tune with your joy, your emotions, and your values because you're going to have practice after having inventoried literally everything you own and identifying how you feel about it. It's just going to be that much more clear. And you're going to be more decisive and quicker to take action, for example, on the papers, just because you're going to be trained to make decisions much more quickly. And it's going to make you more present and grateful. When we're surrounded by clutter, it's difficult to be present because we are just our attention is being grabbed by all of these different things. But when your space is cleared, you can be much more present and enjoy the space and much more grateful for everything that you have. Now, a few habits to kind of keep you tidy once you have completed this process, or even you can start employing this right away. The 2-minute rule is my favorite. Anything that you can do in 2 minutes or less, you should do right away. So that example of, brushing your teeth, put it right away. It takes less than 2 minutes. Walking in the door with a handful of mail takes less than 2 minutes to recycle the promotional stuff you don't need and to sort the papers into action file or pending. It takes 2 minutes to, maybe put your dish in the dishwasher or quickly wash it out in the sink. Anything that you can do immediately, don't delay, because it's those delayed actions and delayed decisions that end up leading to clutter. Now, I already talked a little bit about that paper reset, but that's where you're going to revisit those 3 paper categories. You're going to take care of all of your action items, so pay all of your bills, even if you pay them online. Get rid of all of the papers in your action once you've taken care of it. You're going to move your file papers to whatever file system you create. And then the pending, you're just going to quickly review what's there and see if any action needs to be taken. Now, on a daily basis before bed, and you can attach this to any habit that's currently working for you, on a daily basis, the last 15 minutes of your day should be spent, walking around your home and just kind of sweeping for anything that's out of place. Maybe you've got some shoes by the door that need to go be put away. Maybe you've got, a coat on the coat rack and it needs to go into the closet, or a glass of water that needs to be taken to the kitchen. Doing this daily really allows you to wake up and enjoy your space that much more. If you're going to be sharing your space with anyone, I would definitely recommend communicating about where things go, especially in a tiny home. Things can get out of hand rather quickly. So label shared spaces as needed, thinking about kitchen, bathroom, things like that. And unpack your suitcase, bags, and packages right away. This may seem like a funny one right now because we've been in quarantine, but it never fails that I'm working with a client and we've already gone through, all their clothes and books, and we're in the miscellaneous category. And then we run into some suitcases from prior trips that they had never unpacked. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for those shoes. Oh, I've already replaced that, that shirt or whatever. So do it right away, because our brain is really good at processing information. It's not great at holding on to information. So it's easy to forget things. And then you can lose things and end up wasting money and time and all of that. And finally, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. I think it's easy to see images on Pinterest and Instagram, and we end up comparing and feel like somebody else has it perfect. But as long as you have a good functioning system and you have kept everything that brings you joy and that suits your lifestyle, that fits in your home, you're going to be in good shape. I mentioned before a couple of the virtual programs that I'm running right now. I did want to share those with you. So this one is called Quarantine Home Detox. So if you're inspired or you're feeling like now is the time that you really want to take this on and you want to reduce what you have, for the next 6 weeks, I'm currently in week 1 with this program, but for the next 6 weeks, I'm guiding a group through each category and giving specific tips and guidance. It's all within a private Facebook group. So you'll have support and accountability there. And it's only $60 for 6 weeks. And I'm donating $30 from each registration to my local food bank, because there have been lots of people in need right now. It's a tough time. So this is something really special. I've never done anything like it before, but like I said, we're in week 1 and it's going great. So that's an option for you. You can register at my website. It's organizedforgood.atx.com/quarantine. And if you're somebody who really needs one-on-one support and accountability, I'm offering that as well, over Zoom or FaceTime. We'll chat for 30 minutes. You can show me your space. I can give you some solutions, some guidance, and then follow up with you to make sure that you're actually doing what you're saying that you want to do. So now I'm going to take some questions. Thank you, Jenna. Okay, let me roll on back. Keep your questions coming. Tomatoes are yummy. This is true. Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, that can be great. So as far as where to donate and what to do with the stuff that you're letting go of, if you're in the Austin area, you can visit my website. I have a page with resources on where things can be donated. If you're outside of Austin, I'll see if I can follow up with you guys. I don't have your email addresses, but I can send it to the coordinators of this event. A couple of resources for where things can be donated. Okay. Check out the minimalist game. Small space specific advice. I gave a few tips. I definitely, think that vertical space is going to be your best friend and multifunctionality. I'm not sure what you're specifically looking for. How does all this work if you have a pet? I'm not sure what that means. Big items to declutter and need help. What do you suggest? No money. I think Facebook Marketplace is a great opportunity. If you're not interested in making money, which it sounds like you're wanting to give this, I am a member of the Buy Nothing group, Google Buy Nothing group. They utilize Facebook groups to create hyper-local communities where it's all about giving and receiving. So it's not about selling. It's just about like, hey, I've got this couch. Does anybody need it? And they come and pick it up. It's super great. Okay, let me scroll down. Tips for households beyond labeling. I'm inclined to put things away. Spouse, not so much. Trisha, I feel you on this. My husband leaves things out. That's why I really think the bedtime, like the daily bedtime sweep is so crucial, because throughout the day, I mean, especially when we're all at home right now, people are going to leave things out. It's just a given. So include your husband in the nighttime sweep, and maybe he'll get it in his head, like where things are supposed to go. But I feel you, that's the trouble. Pet hair. Okay. What to do with long-term items while traveling? Okay. Well, so there are some times when a storage unit is the way to go, and I think that's what to do for long-term storage while traveling. Great job covering so much. Do you have a referral program? I don't, but thank you. Good job, Lori, donating bags. Denise, thank you for that. Okay. What clothing resale website do you prefer? It depends. They all have their kind of merits, Terry. I like ThredUp for right now, especially because it's like you send all of it to them. They take what they need. You're not going to get as much per item, but you don't have to take the photo, write up the listing, communicate with buyers, deal with people who want to undercut your price and all of that. So for that reason, I like ThredUp. If you are more inclined to do, list each item, Poshmark is good. If you've got high-end items, the RealReal is really good. Depop is a kind of a cult one. If you've got a lot of like 80s and 90s wear, it's pretty specific, but there's a lot out there. Yep, Buy Nothing group, Denise says. That's great. Okay, Kelly asks, what advice would you give to a couple when one is organized and the other doesn't care? Kelly and Trisha, I get you. I mean, we all have kind of our own threshold with what we're willing to, or not willing to, but what bugs us. Each person has their own. I don't know how to answer this. It's tough. It just takes respect and communication, and try out that nighttime daily sweep of the house, and give that a shot with your husband. All right. Should a storage unit be cleared out with the main space or separately? Desi asked that. Desi, I would treat that as a separate space. And I would do the same if you've got a garage full of stuff. I would treat that as a separate space. Do the KonMari categories in your home and then do it in your storage space. But I would still try and unpack boxes as much as you can and sort things into categories. So again, you have an idea of the volume of items. Let's see. More questions. Okay. Thought I was pretty organized, but learned several useful things. Oh, I'm so glad. Buy nothing groups may now be called sharing economy. Absolutely, Trisha. Do you recommend using vacuum bags for storing seasonal clothing and blankets? Yes, Tabitha, that's a great question. And absolutely, I think that is a good solution for a small space. Maybe you want to take note of what you have stored in those storage bags, because they can be kind of a pain to get in and out of. And if you've got cold snaps really quickly, you want to be able to get that stuff. Let's see. Do I Google the Buy Nothing group, or is it on Facebook? Google your Buy Nothing group, and it will on their website, it will direct you to the one that's closest to you, the most local for you. Any experience with tiny house clients? Yes, I have worked with a tiny house client, and she has already been in her tiny home, but she has like a storage loft in her tiny home where she was keeping a bunch of sentimental items from her mom. And so she hired me specifically to work through some papers, and then those sentimental items, just to have that support. But yes, I have worked with tiny homes. Let's see what. Ooh, Tara's got a good. Okay, if you're interested in shadow boxes for your sentimental items, Tara Dunn is the person to contact. Thank you, Tara. Recommendations for cleaning out a storage unit. I already kind of talked about that. Oh, I love that, Denise. Okay, when we gave away lots of furniture through Buy Nothing, we asked for people to give a story on why they should get what we were giving away. Yeah, you have the freedom to choose who you want to give it to. So you post an item, you say give, whatever, and you can have whatever reasons you want to. It's wonderful. What is your background? I want to be a professional organizer. Well, my background's kind of all over the place. I studied Spanish and I taught for a little bit. And then I worked for an international study abroad company. I was kind of a project manager. So I was organizing spreadsheets and proposals and budgets and things. But I got into this business after losing my dad. It was kind of a wake-up call for me to just do what I wanted. I wanted more freedom. I wanted to work for myself. So I started my business in 2016, and it's been awesome, Annie. I recommend it. Daily struggle with different personality tidiness. I have a hard time with sentimental stuff too, says Jennifer, and also how to do this with kids. Ooh, I'm glad you brought up the kids. I wasn't sure if this community would have many families, but this is a great question. How to do this with kids? First, do your own stuff first, so you can kind of figure out what the process is like for you and model the behaviors that you want your kids to adopt. Your kids' ages are 5, 8, and 12, so I think they're all of an age where they will need to be involved. This isn't something you can do for them. Now, if we're talking about, a 2-year-old, maybe not. But what you want to do is, for the 5-year-old, for example, if he's got a bunch of, let's say he's got like a bunch of little cars and things, pull out all of the cars and say, okay, which are your top 3? And have them rank favorite to least favorite, and talk to them about, we're so lucky we have so much and we want to give the extra to other people. So if you can kind of make it a lesson in philanthropy for them. That can be really powerful. Also, kids are really in tune with what brings them joy, even more so than adults in my experience. So they should have no problem choosing. Now, they can be attached to things, especially things that they create. So I would just, again, model the behavior that you want to see in them, and just have a conversation about making sure that the stuff that we have, we're able to care for it well. If you've got more than you need or more than fits in the space, then it's not contributing to a happier lifestyle. So get real and speak with them. Having a hard time with sentimental stuff too. Okay, so here's the way I deal with sentimental stuff. So any of the previous categories can include sentimental items. For example, in clothing, you may have like a wedding dress, or you may have, a piece of clothing that you're never going to wear again, but that it's just tied to a specific occasion, or you have an association with a person, or, and in the book category, maybe it's been a gift, maybe it's a first edition or signed by the author. So I would hold off on all of those until the end. And then you can really see, again, the total volume of things that aren't serving a utilitarian function in your life, but that have that sentimental attachment. And then break that down into categories. And when going through photos, for example, let's say you have like an heirloom or, a set of champagne flutes from your wedding. Okay. You've got those, but they don't fit in the cabinets now in your tiny home. You never use them. And you compare that to other artifacts from the same experience and say, okay, of all of these, what is my favorite artifact that really captures the spirit of whatever this is? Maybe it's stuff belonging to your grandmother. What captures her essence the most? And really have that one object represent the whole. The same thing if you've got collections, keep one to represent the whole. If you've got maybe a fabric that is sentimental, cut a square of it and just keep a little piece of it. So there's definitely ways that you can reduce the volume without losing really that sentimental attachment that you're talking about. Can you repeat the name of the group to Google for donating items? Buy Nothing Group. Trish says, most places are closed to donations right now. Call ahead and find out. I tell clients to tuck and store them in an out of the way spot for now. Absolutely. You got it. Craigslist is good for giving things away. Do you have a second lot for stuff you need to keep but don't always use, like for your hobbies? I think that's a great question for the tiny housers. Okay. Going back down to the bottle. Sorry, I'm like scrolling up and down. So if I've missed your question, I'm going to try to get to it. My wife sparks joy for me. I'm going to fold her up and put her in my favorite drawer. Love it, Tyson. Cute. Okay, Ramsey. Most likely your kids don't want it. Let it go. Good advice. If you've got grown children, I know a lot of people think that they're gonna pass things on to their kids, and their kids are like, I'm not into it. Great information. Wonderful. Okay, how do you go through and decide which items to keep, like papers that do not spark joy? Okay, so I'll answer generally, and then I'll talk about papers a little bit more specifically. One way, if you're not clear on what sparks joy, that's okay, and that's normal. I say give it a second, hold it in your hands, and ask for inner guidance, okay? If that is not working, there are additional questions that you can ask, and it depends on the category. So if you join my quarantine home detox program, that's exactly what we'll get to, is you'll get a little bit more guidance and a little bit more support for each category. I'll tell you what questions you want to ask yourself. And then let me talk about papers. papers that do not spark joy, I think they just need to go. So the only thing you need to decide is, does this have information, secure information that I need to shred this, or can this just go straight to the recycling? If papers in general don't spark joy, welcome to the club. Go paperless. It's so easy. I mean, your phone can be your scanner. There's a Dropbox app, and you can scan things in on your phone and use the Dropbox app and have all of your information stored online. Shirts can be made into t-shirt quilt. Great tip. Ramsey, thanks for sharing your why with us. It's so your children don't have to deal with your stuff. Yep. Okay. Terry says, before birthdays, Christmas, I used to have my kids pick 10 things to give to charity before they received new gifts for the holiday. That's wonderful, Terry. I love that. And I would also add the 1 in, 1 out rule is fabulous after you've completed this process. So after you've really reduced down to only the things that you love, then try not to accumulate again. As a sewer, I have a bunch of fabrics and notions. Quite often I feel I will have to have separate storage. Yeah, that can be tricky. I mean, some hobbies just take a lot of space. And depending on your tiny home and how it's designed, it may or may not work. What you could do, maybe, depending on where you are. So there's this great organization here called Austin Creative Reuse, and it's basically a thrift store for craft supplies. And it makes it really affordable to grab stuff for your project and then to donate it and not feel too bad about the impact. But yeah, that can be tough. Tammy asks, what to consider important items for better living for daily living? I think that's a personal, maybe spend some time journaling, what's important to you. It's so personal. And I would base it on your values. So if your whole purpose for wanting to go tiny is so that you're not spending your time with stuff, but you're spending it with people or doing the activities that you love, I think that's it. Marie says, I'll be selling my home in 2 to 3 years and going tiny, trying to declutter now so it won't be a last minute mad dash. Marie, I think that's very wise. What I've heard some people do is like close off doors to rooms. If they've got a larger house and they want to kind of try out living small, close off doors to rooms that you don't use that much and see how long you can go before entering that room. All right. Jan says, how do you try to keep all this in place? You have busy life and are barely home, school, work back. Jan, I'm not sure if you're referring to while you're going through the KonMari method or just daily life organization. But again, you want to think of the KonMari method as a once in a lifetime, like clean out. And it's not that it has to happen over the course of a weekend. I mean, you want to do it as quickly as possible, but most of my clients take anywhere from 3 to 6 months and kind of chip away one category at a time. So that's one approach. Maybe you can get childcare on a weekend or something and focus one day at a time while you're doing the KonMari method. And then in general, try those tidy habits, like the 2-minute rule. And again, modeling the behaviors for your kids and not trying to do it all for everyone. I mean, no one person can do it all. So really model the behaviors. Clothing is easy, except I had no idea how sentimental clothing is to me, Julie. Yeah, it definitely can be. We can make associations and things, but that's the whole, like, let it go with gratitude. Maybe you've got like your first, maybe you're a lawyer and you have your first like 3-piece suit that you wore in the courtroom or something. Take a picture of it. Find some way to commemorate that without keeping all the stuff. Okay. Jessica asks, how do I become a consultant like you? Is there a training program that I can go through? Yes, go to KonMari.com. I know that they've canceled several of the trainings this year, but you can be put on an email list and they'll notify you when the trainings are available again. We've got 4 more minutes and I want to get to a few more questions. Okay, Triana asks, how do you go about getting rid of the sentimental stuff that I've collected from deceased family members, especially when everything has a story? I mean, it's very tough. But again, the purpose of stuff is to support our life. So maybe you can thank the items for supporting your family members' lives and acknowledge that they would never want their stuff to be a burden to you. I mean, that would make them sad, I'm sure. So you just have to decide what's most important to you and kind of go from there. Elizabeth asked, could these organization tips easily apply to digital filing? For example, decluttering your computer if you use that to file important things in a tiny house. Yes, absolutely. Apply this same approach to digital decluttering. Take it one category at a time, save the sentimental stuff for last. Actually, Marie Kondo just came out with a new book in which she talks a little bit more about digital decluttering and especially the workplace. I just started it, so I don't have more tips than that, but definitely check her out. Great. Tiny house by October. Awesome, Julie. Okay, let's see. Okay, Jan asks, how to try all this in place? You have busy life. Oh, I think I already talked about that. Okay. Time is coming up to an end. What about long-term storage items, Tammy? I'm not sure what long-term storage items you might be referring to. I would consider the category and how much a role you want it to play in your home. Potentially you have a little storage loft in your tiny house like my client does. Perhaps you have a storage unit. I hate to say it. I think that those should only really be used temporarily, like while you're traveling. But let's see. I don't have anything to say about getting appraisals for things, Anne. Yeah, I know there are other companies that do that though. Lori says, I like pickupplease.org. They pick up at your house and help others. That's nice. Let's see. I've got 1 minute left. Let's see if I can find one more question to answer. Okay, go back to the bottom. Okay. How does this differ from Swedish death cleaning? It's similar. I think Swedish death cleaning is more of a concept. It doesn't have a very linear approach. So in my mind, the categories is super helpful. But Swedish death cleaning can definitely put you in the right headspace to declutter because it's talking about the anticipation of not being around anymore and not needing stuff. Okay, folks, time is up. I do want to go back to my screen about my quarantine home detox. The website is organizedforgood.atx.com/quarantine. I hope you'll join me. Thank you so much for being here.